Welcome to the next video in this series. So previously we have established connectivity between the three networks we have, and then we have configured firewall rules to allow ICMP traffic. In continuation with that, we will uh, look into installing routing and remote access services and how we are going to use those services, for example, VPN. Right, so we will look at different types of VPNs and try to work with more than one VPN, and then from there we can move forward. Right, so before we start, we are just checking the status of the servers here. So we are working with this, so it should successfully ping because we have installed the operating system servers, optimized it, configured the IP addresses, troubleshooted the network, and we have allowed ICMP traffic using the firewall rules. So which means if I'm going to ping 192.168.1.2, which is the client, it pings. And if I'm going to ping 10.0.0.2, it should ping. I don't 10.0.0.2, it should ping, but yeah, it pings here. I think I have tweaked something because my L server is turned off, but still it pings because I have just made some tweaks here just to work out with with VPN. It's fine for now, so ignore about that. So for now, our network is all good. So the first thing we are going to do is to add some services. So one of the services we are going to look at the moment is how we are going to install routing and remote access services. Later, we will understand how it is going to be useful for us, how we are going to implement those services or use those services. So usually go to your add roles and features. It's in the dashboard, or you can go to server manager and then find it. Next, it's a role-based, feature-based installation. So it's not a remote desktop services, so it's a role-based installation. Check whether your server's IP addresses are correct. So it's correct here, 10.0.0.1, 192.168.1.1. So go next. So these are the server roles you have. So eventually at one point we will also be installing domain services. We will come back to that later. For now we are going to use remote access. That's what we are going to look at. So you click on remote access. So now you could see that there is a remote access role and it has some features or it has some services. We're going to install that. So I click next. So these are the features. If you want to add more features onto it, you can just add the features. I'm going to skip all those things for the demo purposes, but eventually you can look at all these services and say which one you need. Do you want to add something else as the features? You can still go and add them and install the services. So I go into remote access. So the roles which offered by the remote access services, we have direct access and VPN. Yeah, we are going to use it. So I click it. So here we have a connection manager administration kit, CMAC. We have an IAS server. We have a remote access GUI and command line tool. It also installs IAS server onto it. We will be using IAS later, so it's fine. It has routing. Yeah, of course, we need routing as well. So next, it says what are the services it is going to use, a web server. So if you want to add more services, maybe at a later part of your task, you can still come back and try to install the services. For example, if you want to use an FTP service, you can install it later if you want, because you don't know what you're going to do. So for now, the default settings are okay. So finally, it says what you're going to install. It asks for a confirmation, and here I'm going to give Um, I use routing as a service. I am going to use remote access, direct access, and VPN. I'm going to install routing services as well. I'm going to use remote server administration kit and web IAS server. Right? I say yes and install. So it's going to take a while to install it, and then we are going to use this roles and services in installing and setting up VPN. So in one of your tasks here, or in what we are going to achieve in the series here, we wanted to install a site-to-site VPN, but yeah, we will do it eventually in one of the series. But considering um, the lecture which we did in our recent lecture session, so we discussed about two different types of VPNs. VPNs, it's a virtual private network. So I'm just going back to the basics which we discussed in the lecture session. So its VPNs are to create an end-to-end private connections. So you're going to connect end-to-end private connections on a public network, literally. It's a private, VPN is private in that the traffic is encrypted to keep the data confidential while it is transported across the public network. That's what VPNs are. That's what the VPNs which you're using for. So when we talk about VPNs, we were talking about two different types of VPNs, like site-to-site VPNs and remote access VPNs. So I thought it would be better to come up with both kinds of VPNs to talk about and install and talk about both kinds of VPNs. So here is just to recall you, a site-to-site VPN is a VPN which is established between one site and another site. Okay, so in our topology here, so this is one site and we have this as one site and we have this as another site. And if you're going to create a tunnel in a public network, eventually we simulate or we assume that it's a public network and we create a tunnel, encrypted traffic within the public network, then it's a VPN, it's a site-to-site VPN. Okay, so that's what is here. A site-to-site VPN is terminated on VPN gateways. So you have gateways, VPN traffic is only encrypted between the gateways. Internal hosts have no knowledge that VPN is being used, so you use normally. Whereas a remote access VPN is dynamically created to establish a secure connection between a client and a VPN terminating device. So here you have a client that initiates a VPN and it takes the data on a public network on an encrypted mode to a VPN gateway. This is a remote access VPN. So I thought giving both demonstration would be really useful for you to understand the difference between site-to-site and remote access VPN. So what I did is I just made a small tweak in this network for this particular demonstration. So I took this client and what I did for this client is I'm going to establish connection. I'm going to create another network and I'm going to connect this network to this guy. Okay, so this is 10.0.0.1 and this will be 10.0.0.2. So, okay, so this is kind of a public network, we assume, kind of thing. So it's a site-to-site VPN. So I'm going to connect VPN from this client to this gateway of the network, and from there I'm going to communicate with this client, right? So it is a typical, I'm trying to simulate a typical example for a remote access VPN. So which means here this machine, it's literally this one is your L client, and This one is your SDC server, and you have another PC, another client which is connected, and that client is what you're going to establish connection. So this is going to be an encrypted connection, and then from there it is going to execute connectivity with the other network, which is a 192.168.1.0 network, right? So an example just to demonstrate remote access VPN. So let's see how it works. Oops, sorry. Let's see how that moves on, and from there we can move forward, right? So I'm going to so we have, let's check if we have installed. So right, configuration required, installation succeeded. So this is how we add roles and features. Immediately when you add roles and features, you get a notification here. It says feature installation, configuration required, installation succeeded, configuration required for a direct access and VPN. So you just go click here and get started. That's a post deployment configuration. Or you can go here and you can go for a routing and remote access, and you can start your configuration. So however you want, you can do that. So which means that in this video we have completed installing routing and remote access services. So now we go into VPN. We are not using site-to-site VPN in this video. We are just going to show a demonstration on a remote access, remote VPN access VPN, right? So just I wanted to give you um, an example to show how remote access VPN work. So let's do this, and then let's go into this part of the work. So remote access VPN is what we are going to look at this video. So for that, so here is the remote access VPN. So for that, let's go here. So I right click on SDC, it says configure, enable routing and remote access. I click on that, go next. So I'm going to use a remote access VPN. So it's not a NAT, it's not a VPN access using NAT or a custom configuration, it's a remote access. So I click on that, and now I don't want a dial up here, but I want a VPN, but the VPN is disabled here. The reason why it is disabled, maybe it's because a VPN server, also called a gateway, can receive connections from remote clients through the internet. So we don't have an internet, so maybe it looks for an internet connection, so it doesn't get an internet connection. Maybe that's the reason. So let's go here and check our settings just for this example. Okay, this is not a part of your coursework or something, just in order to successfully demo a remote access VPN. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another adapter. I'm going to check whether if it works. I'm going to add another adapter. I make it as a NAT and I say okay. So here we go. Do you want to allow your PCs? I say yes, just for that. So let's go to the command prompt, ipconfig. So here we go. I have an Ethernet 2, it's a local domain, and I got an IP address from my NAT network. All right, so let's cancel this. Go again, config, next. I'm going to do a remote access. Here we go. So now it finds out a connection to the internet. So it wants to pick that. So I'm just going to say VPN here. Right, next. So here it asks me to enable VPN client to connect to the server. at least one network interface must be selected connected to the internet. Okay, so that select the network interface that connects this server to the internet. It's like literally, so which one, see, it's a VPN. VPN connects through the internet, encrypts and makes the communication private. So here it asks which interface is the one which connects, which is the point here. So if we go back to this example here, so this is the server which we are in. So this is the gateway which we are working on, right? Let's go for the black. So this is the gateway server. This is where we are now currently. So it asks which is the interface. So we have to give this interface at this point. So let's go here. This is going to be 10.0.0.1. That's the interface, because this is our topology, and the interface which I'm going to connect is 10.0.0.1, because here I'm going to give this interface as 10.0.0.2. So I'm going to connect these two things here. So I say 10.0.0.1, and then it asks for enable security on the selected interfaces. So we are at the basic level. We are not going to enable any security aspects at this moment, because it's just to understand how VPN works. So here it asks, you can assign remote VPN clients, so which network it wants to use. So it is literally, it says that you are going to connect here. So this is the interface which is connected to the internet, and which interface is connected inside to the local network. So that's what literally the question here is. A remote VPN clients to the network that you want to use it. So here I want to use the network. I want to use this network, which means I want to give this interface, which is 192.168.1.1. Right? So this is my external, this is my internal. Right, so I'm going to give 192.168.1.1. That's my internal. Do you want to give a DHCP automatically? We don't configure the DHCP yet, so it's a specified range of IP addresses. So I will go and give the specific range. So it is 192.168.1.100, and the end IP address is 192.168.1.110. So totally there are 11 addresses. Why I am giving 192.168.1 network is I'm going to connect to I'm going to connect to 192.168.1.0 network. So this is the network which I want to connect. Okay, so if I want to connect to this network, if I want to connect to let me remove everything. If I want to connect to this network, I want to use an IP address within this network. So already 1 and 2 is used. So I say I give a range from 100 to 110, which is 11 IP addresses. So this PC or this client, it is connected to this gateway, VPN gateway. Okay. So once it is connected to this gateway, the VPN server will connect to this network, which means the 192.168.2.2 is one IP address. When it goes here, it will also get an IP address something from this range. Okay, which means it will consider that this guy is local to this guy, right? So it needs an IP address. So that's what we are trying to give here, and say, okay, next. Do you want to set up a radius or no use routing access? So we are not using radius, so security is now not in our focus. I just finish it. Yep, I finish it. So now it goes on. Right, So you could see that the red dot here, or a red symbol there, may change into green, and you could see all the information here. So you have your network interfaces, you have your ports, you could see the ports, the available ports in which it could connect. You have remote access clients, you have remote access logging and policies. This is another thing which you have to focus on. So what you have to do is go to this remote access and launch NPS. So an NPS is a network policy server. So you have to go and activate it. So click on network policies here. You see the connections to Microsoft routing and remote server access. It's enabled, but the access type is denied. By default, it's deny access and the source is unspecified. So I just want to open it, and I grant access to it. Say apply. Okay. So you could see the tick here. That's done. So literally we have now configured a VPN here. So we have configured a VPN gateway. Which one have we configured as a VPN gateway? We have configured uh, SDC as a VPN gateway. So we are not using a site-to-site VPN here. Just to reiterate, we are using a remote access VPN. We are going to connect client Win10 here, this machine, as a remote access using this VPN gateway to access this network. Right. So let's go to the London client or L client. That's a machine here. So initially, if I just go to ping 192.168.1.2, okay, before that, let's go for ipconfig. So it is 10.0.0.2. I've just made a tweak here. It's no more 192.168.2 dot something network. It's 192.168.0. I mean 10.0.0.2 is IP address, and 10.0.0.1 is a gateway, which means I'm just skipping the part of configuring a routing protocol at this moment. I'm just directly connecting it so that we establish a connection. So if I'm going to ping 10.0.0.1, here we go. It pings, which means it connects to the server, which means the connectivity. I have disabled the default L internal, which has the IP address. So instead of that, what I have did is I have created another one, so which has a 10.0.0.2 as an IP address, and it goes to 10.0.0.1, which is the VPN gateway. So it is connected to the VPN gateway. So let's go in and let's try to configure the VPN here in the client. So for a remote access VPN, just go to network and internet settings, network sharing center, and I'm going to set up a new connection here. So this is a VPN, so I go for a connect to VPN. Connect using a VPN connection through the internet. I will set up this one later. So which your network administrator can give you this address. So type the internet address to connect to. So I want to connect to the IP address, which is 10.0.0.1. That's the connection which I want to give. Allow other people to use this connection. Create. Right. So once I have done that, and if I go to CPL, I should see that I have a VPN connection here. So let's go in, and here I have a VPN connection connected. It should ask for user credentials. Give the user credential. give OK. So it's connected. You can go to this DC, and if I click on the ports, I should see one active connection here, and this connection is given an IP address of 192.168.1.102. We haven't given any IP address like 192.168.1.2 here. If I'm just going to say ipconfig, here you could see that you have a VPN connection. It's a PPP adapter VPN connection, and it has 192.168.1.102, which means that it is connected, and when the VPN is connected, it goes to the gateway, and from this gateway, the gateway assigns this local IP address, and it uses this local IP address as if assuming that it is part of the internal network itself. So this is remote access. So always the VPN gateway has the authority here. If it wants to disconnect, it can disconnect it, which means you close it, you refresh it, see everything became inactive. You go to this client and you see that it's not connected. You have to connect it, right? Yeah. So if you want to connect it again, so it can connect it and it can work it out that way. So this is how you connect to a remote access VPN, and then you can access the machine. So this is an example of a remote access VPN. So for this topology, what we are working for our tutorials, this is the reason why we are not working on a remote access rather than we ask site-to-site VPN, because remote access is something like we need an internet, we connect it through internet. Okay, so it is like imagine a home network. You are in home, from home you want to access a service which is in your office. That's when you go for a remote access. Okay, but here in this case we have a Swansea campus and we have a London campus, which means we may be having multiple clients here, and we want all the clients to access this. In that case, we need to go for a site-to-site VPN, which means this site is connected to this site as a VPN, right? So in the upcoming videos, we will look at how site-to-site VPNs work. But for now, in this video, we have covered the aspects of how to install routing and remote access services, what's the purpose of the services, and what is VPN and how remote access VPN works, right? See you